So you're around 30 years old, like I am. You're a first-time founder, like I am. You guys are initially bootstrapped. We are bootstrapping. You're smart, funny, good-looking. We're both alike in that, of course, but you are a better marketer, of course, than I am. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Will Allred, one of the founders of Lavender.
Yeah, like what makes for a good social post, right? Obviously, the hook is important.
Hey, you, salesperson sitting at your desk.
It's like getting to not only like teaching them something, but showing them how to do it, making it actionable.
Will Allred? Yeah, he's ours.
I didn't find any interviews of Will on YouTube talking about topics that we discussed today. Are you happy with the speed Lavender is growing?
Am I happy? I don't think any founder is ever going to answer that with yes.
That's smart. So I'm very excited to share with you how Will and his team are approaching building the next unicorn. And as Will confirmed, they have everything for that to happen. I saw you have a really great advisory board. So you have Kyle Coleman, Morgan Ingram, Carthmis Brown, Joanna Fortet, Scott Lees. Hey, do I need to have advisors? Am I looking at that?
It's a mindset, right? Like, would you rather have a bench of people that you can rely on and call on in these moments of need? Or would you rather figure it out by yourself?
Thank you and enjoy the episode. I received a lot of feedback from people saying that, hey, we want to hear more personal story, want to hear more about the people and not necessarily about what content they usually produce. So I think that folks who are listening to this would find a lot of really incredible videos and content and podcasts that you did about prospecting, email marketing, cold emails, sequences, template writing, all those things. So if we wanted to talk about that today, we can. But I'm not planning on dedicating a lot of time on that. So just FYI, okay?
Yeah, that is totally fine. And I think, I spend a lot of time talking about prospecting, tactics, strategy, but some of the best outbound is fueled by a deeper understanding of actual, like how a business works. Like what's in the mind of the individual on the other side, because we tend to get a little caught up in our own verbiage and our own language of we're this revenue automation platform thingy. And like we get away too far away from, hey, here's literally the pains that happen within a business. And like, here's how people talk about them. Here's how the bigger picture comes together. And like, you're a small fraction of it and that's okay. But like, understand where it fits within that larger scheme.
I noticed that when people started in our industry, it takes them several years to pick up this jargon or language that we're using all this time, abbreviation and the words and shortcuts, and they start using it on their daily life. And it's weird and there is someone outside the industry when they hear talking, it's like, why do you use this and this and that? And then to your point about business acumen, I think that generally it's something that I start training on my SDRs and account managers on the business acumen and understanding of the business from top to bottom. And then you are able to build a more effective strategy at the end. So
there's good jargon that is used by a group of people to shortcut getting to a mutual understanding. And then there's bad jargon in the sense that said jargon is confusing because people are outside of that understanding. Right. And so while you took a shortcut, they didn't come with you.
Yeah. I know you guys you pivoted to Lavender with William, but you consider this to be one company that you're building, or this still two different businesses?
It's a great question. It's technically the same entity. Lavender operates as Lavender, but like it's under the organization of Sorter Inc., which Sorter was the original product and idea that we started with back in 2018. Before I met Will, I was working on another startup idea, which is actually what led me to the hackathon where we met. And so I refer to it as like my failed founder attempt. But met our CTO Casey a year after meeting Will. And in 2020, we went full in on building Lavender.
Yeah, I wanted to definitely talk about the inception story just to frame out the conversation, but just a few facts. So you're around 30 years old, kind of 30-ish, like I am. You're for first time kind of founder with the company that generate profits and generate revenue, kind of like I am. You guys are initially bootstrapped. We are bootstrapping. You have great work ethic as far as my research shows. You're smart, funny, good looking. We're both alike in that, of course, but you are a better marketer, of course. You are a better marketer, of course, than I am. That's, hands off there. But what was interesting for me was the way, although we are in the same generation and we are brought up on the very same notions and ideas, and I think the informational spectrum of things that we learned and read was very similar in a way. It's interesting how you guys are building Lavender in a bit different fashion than what I'm doing with my businesses. And today I'm just trying, if you allow me, I would want to understand your vision and why you are building Lavender the way you are building it in this kind of fashion, and just to kind of pick your brain on this. All right?
Yeah. I think an easy place to start from that is the overall mindset and thinking behind that. Lavender happened, I don't want to say by accident, but it was intended to be a side project to keep revenue up enough that we could keep the doors open during the start of COVID. It turned out to be a really good idea. And so we pivoted to focus full time on that business. The underpinnings of how we've made this business work and how we've built it is very different than what we've done in the past, where in very classic founder fashion, we launched Lavender thinking it was a it was a solution, kind of looking for a problem, which is a really bad place to be. I think in a lot of ways there's some luck involved in that, where the market found us and pulled us in the right direction. And since then we've built around that, and we're building towards that of how do we help sellers communicate as well as possible in these moments. But when we first launched the product, we didn't know who it was for. We didn't know who would get the best utility out of it. And we did a ton of market testing with an advisor of ours, trying to figure out where it best fit in. Is it customer success? Is it marketing? The original models were built for Facebook ads. So how we're building this company is different in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. I think that wasn't an initial question. That was sort of just framing the conversation. That's what I wanted to get within, the spectrum of the question that I would ask you today. But I'm not sure. I don't think that you have the one single answer to the question why you're building Lavender this, right?
Yeah.
Answer me this. Are you happy? So now we have what we have. So fast forward. You pivoted to in 2020. There was you, William. Then fast forward 3.5 years, you guys raised north to something like $13 million in total investment, right? Both late seed and Series A. How many people you have in your team right now?
Well, I just came back from being off for 2 weeks. I know we hired a couple more, so I think it's 24 now.
24.
Which, if you think about in perspective, at the start of the year, we were 6 people.
But you have so many clients.
We have over 30,000 active users on the product. Doesn't mean they're paying us. I always have to give that caveat. That'd be sweet. But we've got some amazing customers that work with us. Folks like Twilio, Clary, Segment as well, alongside Twilio. So we've got some amazing customers.
I think some of the listeners realize this, but maybe some don't. Building a company, a technology that service thousands of customers to 20 people, it's it's a very unique place to be at. It's like one of those companies that it's a dream job, essentially. Very often people say that, honestly, because imagine having 300 people servicing 100 clients or 200 clients. So, usually it's, or 500 or 1,000. So less people you have on your head count, the more service companies you can, the faster you are, the faster you can move on, the more efficient you are with regards to, because, the bigger you guys become, problems with communication, hiring, et cetera, adaptation, all those processes. And it's not for the builders. So it's.
Yeah. It's something I have to remind myself often, which is, because you can get caught up in the minutia of the day to day and be like, oh, this is hard. Quickly. But very fortunate to have the hard that I have. I'd rather have this hard than other hards.
That's why I'm very excited about this conversation, just understanding how and why and et cetera, et cetera. So to answer this question, are you happy with the speed Lavender is growing? And did you expect it, planned it a year ago, 2 years ago?
Am I happy? I think
with the speed of growth.
I don't think any founder is ever going to answer that with yes. Mm-hmm. we're growing it out.
Are you satisfied with the speed of Lavender's growing?
We are growing at a healthy clip. But that being said, I'm rarely satisfied or happy with the speed of said growth. Mm-hmm. And that is more a mentality that keeps us hungry internally and keeps us pushing the ball forward faster than most would expect.
Is the team happy with the growth?
Man, it's a hard question for me to answer. From my understanding is I believe they're happy. One of the things in hiring people is we want to make sure that they, mesh, understand each other, work well together in that work. Some days are happier than others, I'm sure. But overall, from my understanding, people are happy.
Amit, CEO of Gong, said that to build a unicorn, you need to have two things. First, you build a product so good that a weak go-to-market team could sell it, and then you build a go-to-market team so good that they can sell a weak product.
Yes.
Do you guys at Lavender have both?
Yes, I do. I feel very confident in that. It's what's made it hard so far to scale our sales org. In particular, is we're picky about who we're going to bring on to help us scale that sales function. That being said, the folks that we have are absolutely incredible.
Can you expand on having a great go-to-market team and a great product team? What's your approach? Let's start with the go-to-market team. What's your approach to building go-to-market team? And generally, again, you say we have a great go-to-market team.
And part of this ties back to what we sell, right? Mm-hmm. But my goal in building a go-to-market team is bringing on a group of people that the folks that we sell to aspire to be like. And that sounds a little weird, but in the sense of they are doing the right things when it comes to sales process, sales methodology. They are every email they send, right, is a demo of what we do. Yeah. And so we take that very seriously internally, as far as how much time and energy and effort we put into making sure that we train up the folks that work here. But also making sure that we remove the roadblocks from their lives as they, go out and try to sell and market. One of our bigger earlier investments is diving in deep with RevOps to make sure that folks have what they need and they have the blocking and tackling in place so that they can, run with it. And they're not tied up in the weeds of this isn't working in Salesforce, right?
Yeah.
I'd much rather they spend their time selling.
100%. Who are responsible for building marketing and brand and go to market? You are, or you have someone on board for that?
Yeah, it's a shared responsibility across a few folks on the team. Yeah, you think about what does it mean? Like, what does brand really mean, right?
Mhm.
Brand is where your actual experience, the product itself, the touch points they have with individuals that work at the
Mhm.
company, where that experience meets like perception. And so, yes, that's blogs we write, that's social content we push out, but it's also product. It's also the
Mhm.
individual engagements that folks have with sellers on the team. It's the relationship that people build with our success team.
Mhm.
So to say building the brand is a one person show and one person's responsible for it, everyone's
Yeah.
responsible for it.
Yes.
Who it ultimately rolls up to is me and my co-founder, Will, CEO.
Mhm.
Yeah, we've built the marketing team fairly flat to start with some
Mhm.
folks that own their sort of zone of excellence. And so, with that, like Chelsea's putting out some of I will be the first to tell you that our team is producing and publishing some of the best content, probably the best content in B2B.
That's true.
I feel very confident in that.
Yeah.
It's a big investment for us. The folks that we have on staff helping with that, folks that, I get to be in the trenches with on the day to day, like
Mhm.
they kill it, right? Our launch of Lavender Land, that's been Todd's, Chelsea with her blogs, Aiken with his content on social. I mean, it's a team effort.
You said that it's a flat team, and they have their zones of excellence, right? Or what the word that you used?
Yeah, there's zones of excellence is exactly
Awesome.
how I thought about it from the
Now,
start.
how do you define a zone of excellence, and how do you then assign that zone for a person when you scale or when
Yeah,
you build a team?
I'm a big fan. I'm trying to see if I have the book on like my shelf over here. But I'm a huge fan of the book called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish,
Mhm.
where he breaks down different aspects and processes within the business.
Mhm.
And so, as a founder, as you scale up in like the early days, a lot of it's like you doing a lot of the stuff, right?
Right.
And then as you've done it to a certain degree, you hand off those things to other people. And like
Mhm.
there's certain things that like I never even got into running and leading myself, like writing blog content because I was so busy on social content. But with that, like those things are important. You need to have people in place to like build them out. And
Mhm.
so then it's just about finding the best person to take that off your plate and do it better than you. Right. And so with that, it's like we know this content is key to how we've been growing
Mhm.
today. We're going to continue to invest in it. And we're going to put the best people possible in their like areas of expertise on building that out.
Where did you find these people? Like, you have a. I know you are big in the GTM and general communities and network. So that's the way you guys are looking for those key talent, or there's
Yeah.
other ways.
So I mean, thinking about like how we found the folks that we did, some of it was having had our own audience.
Mm-hmm.
Being like, hey, we're looking for marketing talent. Yeah, folks like Todd, for example, reached out via cold email and like
Mm-hmm.
created an entire role for himself and how he reached out to us. Yeah, with others, it's like reaching out and it's just classic recruiting, right? Hey,
Definitely.
we're building a marketing team and
Mm-hmm.
really want you to be a part of this.
No, if if you're recruiting for classic recruitment for a marketing, that's one thing. But then you are looking for content creators, and that would be, and just creators in general, which is different. It's not like being a copywriter, right?
Yeah,
It's
I think this is an interesting perception that you have, which is that like we were looking for content creators. That was actually a like secondary function of
interesting.
what ended up happening. We were looking for whoever is the best at what we're looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like creating that blog content. It just so happens that Chelsea's got a great following on Twitter. She's
Right.
built a similar brand on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
It's that finding Chelsea, for example, like that was a process of being like, Chili Piper's built something really special. She was there for a long period of time, like understanding that and then being like, okay, who's behind that? How do I go find that person? Yeah. Talking to Chelsea, talking to other people as well, who like pointed back to similar like threads and being like, okay.
That's a great way. I mean, we found some of our best creators for blogs because we read a lot about or a lot of their work on HubSpot blog, right? Or on some other blogs. And you're like, hey, I love how this person thinks, how they put together data, how they analyze, how they do the research. I want them to collaborate with us to create something unique based on our platform, right? And that's the best way.
Yeah. And I think one of the other pieces to this was like understanding alignment between both parties, right? It's like, hey, this is what we need. Like, where does that like match back with what you're doing, what you've done in the past, and like finding that like, okay, this is actually where I want to go in where I'm going with my career. This is like what I want to go build. Those things are important.
You're so lucky that you have a partner like that in your life that you are building business with. The reason I'm telling this is I am as lucky as you are, and having someone that you're starting a partnership with for like 6, 7, 10 years and just working hand by hand and supporting each other in this weird, strange, difficult situations and times. It's so cool. And it's so kind of, I know a lot of founders that are just solo founders and they're not as happy as if you're in the couple and you can share the burden of responsibility with someone.
Well, and it's a trio. Casey is just as much a co-founder as I am. Yeah, he's our technical lead. And he does a great job with the engineering of what we're doing. Yeah, there's a reason we're successful, right? And it's because there's a product that backs up all the talk that we have online.
It's my personal approach and the way I see things when building a business. It's we started with someone like with a co-founder, but then as you build up the team, there are key people that you start working with. They became as equal partners. So it's your company of all, right? And you don't necessarily need to own equity or a majority of equity, but the company that you're building is, your CTO, your CFO, your chief recruitment officer, everyone is equally contributing to the success of the organization, and they would be obviously paid off at the end when they really have a great celebration day, right? So,
yeah. I think part of that too is like how you set up people to work. I've noticed from working like Will Allred, for example, is like he takes like a considerable like piece of ownership in like what he does. He takes a personal responsibility in that. Genuine care that a founder would as well. And I think a lot of that just comes from setting up a foundation of trust with the people that you work with, giving them ownership to run and do what they need to do, and encouraging that at every step of the way.
Where did you learn it from? What was the company that you saw this and you're just like, hey, this is the way that I wanted my company to run?
I don't know if I can point to like one company in particular. It's funny because I've had like some bad management experiences in the past.
Everyone had that,
which like has actually guided and shaped a lot of like how I've behaved as a leader, right? It's like, well, I knew that was bad, so I'm not going to do that, right? It's like, but to say like one in particular, I think one of the folks that I learned a ton from is my former boss, a guy named Dave Sutton, who ran an agency. The agency he's since sold, but the agency was called Top Right, and he had written a book called Enterprise Marketing Management, which sounds really dry and corporate, but there's a really cool lesson to be had from it, which I sort of spoke about earlier when I was talking about brand being like every touch point. It's not just this idea of marketing is this like top of funnel generator, right? The book goes through like how marketing touches every aspect of the business, whether it's finance, whether it's operations, whether it's product, whether it's sales, like it's something that is not just a like megaphone. It's
Yeah.
like, do you understand the market, and are you having an active conversation with the market every possible moment along the way? And so it changes philosophically how you view about the business, what the business is striving to be, and how you're actually going to bring that to life. Because if like you have this story, this brand that you want, right? It changes your perspective of what that means, because now it's not a question of, okay, we want this brand of, we're the light, bubbly, blah, 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 right? Or like we're sassy sass or any of that. That's like so superficial, right? It's this like, we have an underpinning mission of like, we want sales reps to feel as confident as humanly possible when they're hitting send in any situation, right? Well, how do we make that happen at every like possible moment where they could interact with their company? And like that changes your perspective of how you think about it. Cause like you also have to understand what's happening in the market. You have to understand what people are dealing with, how they're talking about it, so that you can communicate with them as effectively as possible.
Are you concerned that you're going to be associated with cold email and like an actor like Daniel Radcliffe with Harry Potter, and then you won't be able to play other roles? Like I've I saw a few interviews when you were compared with Grammarly, or like Grammarly, like, hey, we use Grammarly, why do we need to kind of use you or something? And it triggers you sometimes, which is like, yeah, but it's kind of whatever. And so, do you have that concern, and how do you work with it right now?
It's a double-edged sword. If you think about what we do and where we excel, is any email that you want a response, that you are genuinely like care about how it's received and like what comes back as a result, like our product works. If you think about the go-to-market funnel, where we can have the most impact is obviously going to be in the cold email, because that's where the conversion rate is the worst. And so like the value that we can provide for folks is like very obvious. It's very clean. It's very quick to get to.
Right.
It's a matter of like recognizing that like that's an entry point and the story has to continue. And so like, it's okay that that's part of the story. It's just making sure that like we're telling a story in a way that folks understand that it evolves past that. Part of that is like how we design product and how we showcase product in different moments. But the other part of it is like how we talk about product, how we talk about use cases, how we bring things to light that wouldn't necessarily be as obvious if all you did was follow my posts on cold email.
How do you think this story development gonna go? I have a concern that, again, something that I was just thinking is defocusing from the value proposition, or sort of like then the value proposition will be too complex for folks. Just say like, hey, what does this tool do? Instead of say, hey, I understand what Lavender is.
Yeah, it's about taking it to this like level of understanding that's like writing better emails faster, not just cold emails. And so the marketing side of that is just showcasing examples, showcasing use case, bringing how people talk about scenarios to life.
Yeah. What's your vision for the product, or for Lavender? You have it where next 5-10 years?
Yeah. I want it to be where in any situation, like our product understands the situation, understands who you are, and understands who they are, and it gives you the contextual recommendations to make sure that you are putting your best foot forward in that moment.
In any communication channel, whether it's text or call or email or message.
You think about like email gets a lot of the focus, right? And it's because of the logistical backbone of it, all things B2B. But like, yeah, there's other places where you write in a business context. And the question is like, when is it the right moment to move into those channels without
Mhm.
like getting away from the value prop itself.
Mhm. Grammarly did really well with creating a cross-platform product where you have it on notes, messages, Slack, email, Facebook, everywhere, and it's like you kind of get used to it. Then when you send a message and there is no editing or something, you just sometimes like, wait, hold on. I do think that you guys potentially can move to being also cross-platform and creating iOS application, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the beauties of being in a Chrome extension, right? Is it gives you a lot of flexibility in your delivery. You're not bound by the constraints of a single platform. The way we've accomplished that today already is through our anywhere functionality. So like if you click on the actual extension button, it says Open Lavender Anywhere, and it's just a text editing field. You can also activate that same functionality on top of LinkedIn. You can like slide it over in a Google Doc. And that's largely because we found that sales teams were struggling in where they were writing and we weren't there, right? And so we're like, how do we create an experience that meets them there in those moments? So it all comes back to allowing the market to pull us in the right direction as opposed to like forcing some vision upon the market.
I heard that, again, from some of the guests on this podcast, that what's happening on the tech market right now is we're going to see more strategic acquisitions of companies, like products, happening more and more and more, because buyers have are different right now. So instead of purchasing several solutions, you just go one omni-channel or all in, like we saw with HubSpot when they're building a lot of different tools and they want to be all in, like Salesforce, Microsoft are doing, etc. Do you think that for your organization that might be a strategic if you're gonna have a offer or someone that would come in from those bigger companies, so that you want to have Lavender as a part of the technology of a suite of a different company? Would you be interested, or are you going to be building your
It's a loaded
Lavender
question, man. No, we're not looking at acquisition right now as an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And that's largely due to the fact that like we think that we are more valuable in market as an independent tooling, where like we're not getting pigeonholed within one platform's existing customer base. We're able to pull across multiple platforms, customer bases, multiple situations, multiple scenarios, and we don't get siphoned in.
But generally, what do you think about this change in buyers, right? So that I want to have one tool with all the features instead of having different tools that service different needs.
I think a lot of that narrative is coming from vendors, less so from buyers. And I say that like recognizing that I could be totally wrong, and like, yeah. But my impression of it, the folks that I see having that conversation are the folks who are also like selling you the milk, right? It's like when I see an article from Outreach that's like, your sequence needs to be 4,000 steps. And I'm like, well, of course, because you sell a tool that makes it 4,000 steps, right? You can't make it 4,000 steps without the tool. So of course, that's like what you need to sell. And it's like, if you're a player in the space and like you're looking at your ability to continue to grow and add revenue, adding a new product line that you can sell into your existing customer base. I mean, M&A happens for two main reasons, right? Access to customers that you didn't have before,
Right.
or being able to sell something new into your existing customer base. And like, you think about like SalesLoft adding forecasting, right? That's a new product line that they can go and sell into their existing customer base.
Right.
But like, is it good enough that like somebody wants that plus that? It's not for me to say, but that's sort of like the question you have to ask. And like, that's always been like the big critique of, say, HubSpot, right? They build all these things in house, and like they're all good, right? Like they build good product, but is it best in class at what they do? No.
Yeah. I think that a few examples that I have on top of my head is, for example, let's say Apollo as an example, right? Apollo was primarily data lead research platform, right? And now they added sequences and they added whatever warm up and some other things. And I do think that that was a few reasons that you just mentioned about working or offering a new product line to an existing client base. That's make total sense. But I think it also goes, and again, you're getting feedback from your users. They always want for the same subscription more. So that, hey, I'm working on this cold email campaign, but I don't have leads for them. Are you guys planning on sourcing leads from LinkedIn to kind of help me with this or something, right? Because like they wanted to have an end-to-end solution always. They don't, because then where do they get the leads? They get the leads from where? And then you kind of forward them, say, hey, get the leads from Apollo or from the Zoom Info or somewhere.
Yeah. I think this is one trend that it'll be interesting to see it play out. Because it's not like I'm devaluing what you're referencing. Because like there is value in consolidation. There's also value in having best-in-class tools.
Yes. The reason I asked is, so one of my SaaS products is Folderly, right? It's an email deliverability platform and email solution success platform. And we were focusing only on, so it's a kind of an like enterprise type product where it integrates with all the ESPs and then measure it against different sending reputation, inbox placement, blacklist, spam triggers, all of those fancy things to kind of to help up to build the reputation, right? And we pride ourselves to be very like vertical in a way, right? And very best in the class in that, and never wanted to go into either outreach or into template or anything else. But the more we grow the sort of like the space and the more we invest, the more we get to feedback. And I'm always kind of battling with my team about whether we wanted to add those additional products in the suite for the same subscription or for additional subscription, or we wanted to still continue in that in class. And I'm sure you must have similar conversations, or you don't, or you just kind of have that clear path vision going vertical and that's it.
Yeah. Our strategic vision here is to go as deep as possible. And that is to be the best at what we do. And it's because I think if we are the best at what we do, it makes what we do irreplaceable. Now, in other companies, other scenarios, it might be that like, a function becomes a bit too like me too. But like the depth of content analytics that we're building out, the data moat that we're putting in place, like those are core things that like are hard to replicate, which like gives us strategic advantage to just keep going deeper and going deeper. That being said, like, do I think like other companies will come up with like scorecards for emails? Sure. I know that mine will be better, right? Which I'm sure you all have the similar conversation around like deliverability. The question is like, at what point does it become good enough versus like, is best in class really the best in class? Which is it's a hard thing to like find that solution around. The thing that I care about most is like, at the end of the day, like the problems that folks are bringing to us, are we solving them and leaning into our strengths to solve them?
Mm-hmm. That's smart. And again, I agree with you here. And I am not supporting the consolidation and having, it's like I'm a huge fan of HubSpot. I integrated all HubSpot like lead collection, nurturing, attribution, positive, negative, all those fancy things because we have a lot of inbound traffic. But if you ask me, Michael, are you using CMS? Are you using landing pages? Are you using some other bullshit? Say no, because they're not best in class. They're
meet the needs that I have, right? And that's what it ultimately comes down to. It's like, is it good enough?
Yeah.
For your use case on X, Y, and Z, maybe, but for the other thing, maybe not. Given the newness of what we're doing in that space, like
Mm-hmm.
we have an opportunity to lead in that category. Where like in a like if I was launching a cadencing tool tomorrow, like
Yeah.
not saying it's a good or a bad idea, but it's hard to say like, am I going to make something that's 10 times better than the existing product out there? Am I
Yeah.
going to scratch that itch way better?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
Like there's been enough development in that like
Yeah.
market that there's maturity.
Mm-hmm.
So like you kind of have to view it in this like comparative function of like what's the
Yeah.
maturity of that market as well.
Yeah. For me, building something like a cadencing tool is logical just because our agency becoming so big that we cannot rely on a third-party technology to service clients, because if third-party technology fails, then if it's a central, a core platform, it's a high risk. Just to finish off on this topic of go-to-market strategy and marketing, I heard William was talking one of the interview about you guys having a consumer-oriented marketing, although you are in the B2B, but it's still a consumer-based, not a traditional B2B. So that's the way you guys are looking at it. Can you expand on this? What did he mean, and generally, how are you looking on this strategy?
Yeah, the consumer-facing marketing. Yeah, at the end of the day, the people that we sell to are people. In particular, they are usually like 30,000 users. Most of those are like individual contributors. They're sales reps, right? They tend to be between the ages of like 21 to like 30-ish, right? And so like with that, how we go to market, how we talk, how we communicate with the market at large, we recognize like who's going to be the end user of our tool, who's going to be like if we sell to CFOs, right, we're going to have a very different look, feel, it's going to be very different than if we're selling to ICs on the front lines. And so like that marketing is designed very intentionally to showcase like we're in the trenches with them, and like, we're building a product for that user experience. And as we start to evolve how we talk about Lavender for leaders, like you'll see some of those aspects change, but some of them stay the same. And like by change, I mean like the message and like who we're talking to, but the style of like making it feel as though we're talking to an individual consumer, like that doesn't change. It's just the understanding of our audience at large.
Yeah, it's interesting. When I learned about this approach of yours, that if you give a Lavender to use an SDR without them going to IT team or to a CFO or to a boss, right, and then they can use it and then they can trial it, and if they love it, then they can go back to their team leader and say, hey, we need this product. And I actually had that. I actually, in the chat before I met you guys, I have one of BDRs say, hey, I'm using Lavender. Guys, you need to check it out. It's so great, et cetera, right? So, and this is the consumer-facing approach, right? Because if there was a traditional B2B sales, then you would go to a head of sales and say, hey, we have this product. Then we think your team gonna love to use. Let us do a demo, right?
Yeah, and it's, as we've evolved to be more sales led, right? As we've focused on some of that top down motion development,
right?
We've started to understand that like, you can't always like just hope that the product leads on that. You do have to like run some change management practice to like get people in the mindset, get people bought in. But some of our like happiest, longest lasting, expanding customers started with an individual. And like I think about like Rex, for example, started with an individual got a promotion. And then like that led to us getting sold into the org.
Yeah.
And that's like team to team to team to team has expanded. Right.
Yeah.
And so like thinking about it like that way, it gives us a lot of flexibility in how we can sell into an organization. one of the key reasons that we have success going top down is because like how people buy is inherently changed. Like one of like the things I think like top down needs to evolve around is understanding like it's a group decision. It's no longer like just one person's choice.
Right.
And so having a product that people love to use is really helpful in that.
Yeah.
Because like, say like we run a trial and the trial gets shut off, like the managers hear about it. They're like, hey, where'd that thing go? That was really nice. All right. And like, they're not used to hearing something like that, which is very helpful lever for us.
Yeah. Did you have a sales team that was doing demos and setting proposals from the start, or are you just building it? Or because with your product, it's like some of the subscriptions like $49 per month or something, right?
We focused on like individuals from the start. The team product was actually something that was actually back to Brax was demanded by somebody who was like, we have a lot of people paying for this. Like, can we just like consolidate this and turn it into a single package? The like focus on top down wasn't a like beginnings thing. It was, and that was really when we saw like a ton of revenue growth is when we launched that team's product and started to go to market and sell. I think once we like established the team's product, I want to say Sendoso was our first customer from that, which like at the time we were like, oh my gosh, it's crazy. But
Did you measure what kind of ACV you should have to be able to have a full-time sales exec closing deals and bringing on revenue?
Yeah.
So I hear like $1 million a year or something in contracts.
Well, part of that stems back to the size of the team that they're trying to talk to, right? And so it's obviously stuff that we're always tinkering with and trying to figure out. But the goal with a top-down sales team is that they're focused on much larger teams. The overall focus is that like the contract size is large enough to support like the fundamental go-to-market model for why you'd have a sales rep.
So would you say that it's fair if on average for a sales exec to make between 150 to 200 a year with like, you need to make $1 million in subscriptions a year. So it's about
no, it takes
$80K a month.
Takes about $750K to get there.
$750K. Yeah, subscription. Okay. I saw you have a really great advisory board. So you have Kyle Coleman, Morgan Ingram, Garth Miss Brown, John Laforte, Scott Lees. I'm trying to understand them having all of these advisors around and being able to ask them for advices and some of the mentorship and some of the thoughts that are going in. How did it help Lavender to get to where you guys are right now? Was there any decisions that were not or haven't been made if you didn't have those advisors on board, or you think that they just help you to kind of streamline the growth, but you guys would kind of make it without them? Again, just wanted to understand for people that's listening, hey, do I need to have advisors? Am I looking at that? Because it's interesting. I talked to a few founders and I didn't see them having this advisory boards. But again, I am on a few advisory boards myself, and I treating all the startups as my own companies, and I'm just full on just helping them to grow. Yeah. So what's your kind of take on that?
I think part of it is like, it's a mindset, right? Like, would you rather have a bench of people that you can rely on and call on in these moments of need, or would you rather figure it out by yourself? I'd rather have advisors, right?
Like simple logic,
I think about like people like Amy Volas or Butler Rains who like, I know I can pick up the phone and like, whether it's interpersonal, whether it's like, particularly any like hiring process related, like questions around like how we're thinking about like sales, you name it. Like, these are people that like trust, respect, and like you are happy to lean on in those moments.
I remember I got to my first few million in ARR, and I spend on marketing only like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30K a month or 50K a month. And every dollar was like very precious for me. And I was like, hey, let's do this and this and this. And we were always innovating. Once we started putting $200,000 in marketing a month or something, things start being crazy, right? It's like you're spending too much money on things that are not working, and then you're realizing it later. Oh, okay, we could save that, or etc. So having, I don't know, 10 mil for growth, it's insane. So it's just that time of, am I ready to pull the trigger? Is it the right way we're spending money, or we're spending too much, etc. And having those conversations, it's interesting. I think that I would want to be one day thinking about that potentially, because we didn't raise, so we are bootstrapping and thinking maybe we'll also begin raising Series A or Series B later on, but we'll see. But it's interesting.
Yeah, well, I think also like not raising. I talk to a lot of founders, right? And like raising is a very specific like track that you're going down. Not raising gives a lot of optionality and a lot of like opportunity that like financially might make more sense for the founder, right? Yeah, it's that classic like the exit for 40 million post seed round, the founder makes the same amount of money as if they exited 400 million after the C round. Like, yeah, because I mean you're selling equity in the company along the way.
A lot of equity,
and so you get a smaller percentage of the end product, particularly when you start to think about like
that's true,
which shares get preference and all that fun stuff. Yeah, if you don't think there's that massive opportunity, venture might not make a lot of sense, right? There's also like things that come to play. So like, where's that market? What's happening in that space? But like, yeah, there's a lot to be said for like why you should actually think about bootstrapping over like going after the VC funding.
Yeah, I think R&D and tech cost is going to come into play, right? Because if your cost of technical support for your product is very high, and the cost of servers and some other, it's like, you cannot raise if you're open AI, right? Because you're spending $100 million on something on servers, right?
Yeah. Which like when you think about like what venture capital was originally designed for, it's those kinds of things, right? Where like
give a shoulder, right? Give a shoulder.
It's truly like a moonshot idea where it's like, if this works, it will fundamentally change like how we work. I think about the story of like Zoom, for example, where like, Zoom was in a crowded space and they just focused on operational efficiencies and they built something very special. Now, like they took VC funding, they did all that stuff, but it shows that like there's a different path for every company. And it's like there's no like one playbook that you have to go down. I was talking to a founder the other day where I was like, honestly, you might be better either like trying to get bought or like just trying to go straight to like anything sub enterprise, just go straight licensing deals into partners and then focus full on for like enterprise, like sales function, and like the core functionality of the product can be offered via like an API to other folks. And they're like, I never even thought of that as an option. I'm like, it just came to me while we were talking, but like, leans into like some of their strengths, some of the cool things that they're doing with their product, where it was very enterprise friendly, but also like recognize like, some of the realities of like their space was somewhat crowded. And so it's like, can you offer that up to them while also like bringing it up market? So like no one path has to look the exact same.
Right. Who are you looking at? Who are you kind of comparing Lavender to, or just kind of admiring, following with regards to companies in your space or startups that you like what they do in terms of their growth, go to market, similar growth strategy, etc. You have anyone?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of what Gong's done to date. A lot of what they've done on the marketing front how they built the company, how they built the brand, I think is like really well done. Yeah, I mean, like folks like the team at Chili Piper, we've gotten to know them extremely well. The brand story that like the folks at like Refine Labs built out, like Friendly
Mhm.
Dark Social and stuff, like those are things that you have to like take for inspiration, like run with,
Mhm.
and use. There's no probably like one particular brand that I'm like, oh man,
Yeah,
I'd sort of
interesting. You mentioned names and my team, and again, I didn't do that, but my team, put together a guest list, and they like, hey, we need to have Chris Walker from Refine Labs, we need to have Alina, we need to have Chris Orlov from Gong, we need to have Will Allred here. So you kind of the same, network of people that.
The one that probably doesn't get enough love is the team over at Calendly. I think about what they've built and like how cheap it is for them to get a customer. And it's just like, that's such a unique story of what they've done, what they've built. That to me is huge as well.
Mm-hmm. I have one last question for you to close up. It's been an interesting 3.5 years for you, isn't it? Do you self-reflect? What do you self-reflect about, if you do any self-reflection?
I do a lot of self-reflection. The reflecting that I mostly come back to is just like I'm grateful that we get to help as many people as we do, that our product is used by as many people as it is, and it's having a meaningful impact. I think it's like it's really cool. The stories that people share, the impact that it has on their lives, like that to me is like why you can ask for much more as a founder outside of somebody getting a tattoo, and like we got that too. So like I think about these things and I'm just like it's pretty surreal. Yeah, me, my co-founders, like we set off on a vision to build something special, and I think we're doing that. We're never done, but yeah, we are doing that.
I know William is doing traveling, and he's again, that's what I saw, like a nomadic type of work. What are you doing to recharge your batteries when you get tired?
Yeah, honestly, man, I hang out with my wife and my dog. Spend some time with friends every now and then. I joke because he's like, he flies around and like travels a lot. I'm a bit more of a homebody. I just got back from a trip to Japan, and like by the end of it, I mean, Japan's amazing.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can't wait to be home.
Any close-up message for the listeners? Something that I didn't ask that's worth mentioning in the tone of our conversation, or something that like last final close-up message from you?
No, nothing is coming top of mind, but if anything comes to mind for you, I'm happy to answer it.
No, I just would say that when I was doing my research, preparing for the interview, I learned a great deal about your product and the vision, and generally a lot of interesting things about email marketing in general. So definitely everyone who's listening, go and check out Will's LinkedIn and his team posts and videos. And you guys have a great production. Everything is very tight, very clean, very packaged, very nice. And it's not watered down. So it's actually actionable and useful. And so you're doing a great job there. So as I mentioned, we are very alike in terms of how things like ethics, smart and fun and good looking, but you're a much better marketer than I am. So
it takes iteration to get there. I wasn't like, we didn't just come out of the gate with like the best content in B2B or anything. Like it took iteration
hard work
to get there.
Yeah, it's a hard work.
Yeah, I think about some of the things that we've done along the way, some of the folks that I've learned from to like get to that, like what makes for a good social post, right? Obviously the hook is important. It's like getting to like not only like teaching them something, but showing them how to do it, making it actionable, which like that didn't just like happen overnight. That stuff takes like practice, iterations, and like, okay, what about that is working? And like, being reflective in the process.
Will, thank you so much for taking the time and having this, for me, evening, for you, afternoon conversation. I
Yeah,
appreciate
of course.
you.